Um, all of you know this, but I grew up Unitarian. I was dedicated to this faith community at the Unitarian Fellowship in Regina. My family moved to Calgary when I was 9 years old, so Calgary Unitarians is my home congregation. It's the congregation and the community in which I heard my call to ministry. During the last 6 or 7 years while I was living in Calgary, Calgary Unitarians hosted a service auction as one of their primary fundraisers. Every year, the minister, Reverend Deborah Falk, auctioned off sermon titles. So this means that the person who bid the highest was allowed to pick the focus of a sermon that she would deliver during the next church year. Sometimes the person would choose a topic that they wanted to share the service with, a topic that they wanted to help create a service about. But other times, people would offer ideas that they wanted to hear Deborah's opinions on, asking her to do the research and share her learnings. In 2016, when I left Calgary, the last auction that I was present for, the person who won Deborah's sermon was Gorham. Gorham is a dear, dear person to me, and I knew him from about the age of 10 or maybe 12. He was one of the patriarchs of the Calgary church for several decades. And when I decided to do an internship in the Calgary church, I asked Gorham if he would be willing to sit on my intern committee. He's an incredibly endearing and generous man who really cared about his community and was often in the church garden and the community garden tending dehydrated plants. He would deliver extra produce to the food bank, and I remember him very specifically teaching me when I was young about composting red wiggler worms. I also remember that he joined the children's program one fall day and asked all of the children to help him dig up the red worms so that we could put them in the church basement so they would not die over the winter. And these are just a few of the amazing, amazing memories that I have of Gorham, who passed away in 2019. I knew Gorham to be a Universalist, Unitarian. He really held on to that theology of universalism. And he also held on to a little bit of the theology of Christian Science that he grew up with. Such as in Christian Science, there's the idea that sin is an illusion, but he chose not to believe that prayer and faith would heal all things. So it was a little interesting mix of theologies. So when he won the sermon title at the auction, I assumed that he was going to ask Deborah to preach along the ideas of universalism, but I was greatly mistaken. Later on, during one of our intern committee meetings, Gorham told us that the title he had chosen was Unitarian Universalism, Out with the Old and In with the New. Gorham explained that when he joined the UU faith 50 plus years ago, he and his wife were looking for a community that was paying attention to world events and doing something about them. That they wanted to be in a community who was engaged in social action and justice work, and that they wanted to raise their 4 kids to live into the values that would make them better, more socially aware people. But that now Unitarian Universalists are no longer the only church that is engaged in these initiatives. He believed that we have lost our edge, that we are just one in multiple faith communities and innumerable other organizations that offer people a space to engage in this work. He also argued that it is no longer mattered whether we were a church that was free, much like the way that James Luther Adams described in our opening words that I shared this morning. Gorham argued that the prophethood of all believers was no longer a thing that UUs could claim as their own. With trainings for every single type of community leadership available and communities of belonging coming in multiple different forms, Gorham believed that it no longer mattered if we were a free church. Although Gorham believed that we Unitarian Universalists had lost our edge, he also full-heartedly believed that Unitarian Universalism still had things to offer this world, that our theology is life-saving, and that the work that we do is necessary in the world. And he wanted to hear a sermon about how we are going to deal with this, how we were going to enact into the world our understanding of what faith is and our visions of truth. Now, the service auction happened in the springtime of 2016, and in June of that year, I moved to Toronto. And so I never got to listen to Deborah's sermon about the future of our faith, although I would have loved to have heard her ponderings. In that same summer, 2016, at the CUC's annual conference and meeting, Canadian Unitarian Universalists were introduced to the proposed vision statement, which Catherine and I shared. I believe that the vision offers us a great opportunity to live into the future exactly what Gorham was asking for. It offers the love and the justice that he sought from our fate. An opportunity to breathe life into our faith in a new, and yes, an already existing way. And it definitely offered us some shared language to express our community and our ideals to those who don't know Unitarian Universalism. And it's not only the vision statement of we envision a world where our interdependence calls us to love and justice, a strong statement to share with a world, but the aspirations offer us an understanding of how to live into this vision. We aspire to be deeply connected, to be radically inclusive, to be actively engaged, to be theologically alive, and to be spiritually grounded. But what does it mean to be actively engaged or theologically alive? And how can this vision statement of radical inclusion and spiritual grounding move us to a place of more visibility in the wider world? What is it about this statement that moves us into a deeper sense of our own faith? Let's take a step back for a minute. The First Unitarian Congregation of Toronto has its vision and mission statement posted on the website. And I'm going to read it to you now. First is a beacon of hope and inspiration in Toronto. We move hearts, hands, and minds to make our commitments to love and justice come alive. We welcome all who come together to seek to understand the meaning in our lives, connect with others as we are, and serve life to build a better world. Or the shortened version, seek freely, connect authentically, serve passionately. The mission statement identifies that what of this community, identifies the what of this community. What do we gather for, and what do we intend our community and our relationships to do? Toronto First is a beacon of hope and inspiration We move hearts, hands, and minds to make our commitments to love and justice, to make our commitments of love and justice come alive. And the vision statement is the how in this equation. How do we move hearts and hands and minds? By coming together to seek to understand the meaning of our lives, by coming together to connect with others as we are, and by coming together to serve life, to build a better world. There are very tangible ways in which this community is acting its vision of into the world. Journey groups and circles of care help people seek meaning. Worship services, choir practices, religious exploration programs, all of these help us to connect. And the justice work, the work that is being done to serve the world, is happening too, from the Reconciliation Working Group, which we heard about today, the Refugee Sponsorship Team, the Green Sanctuary Team, and so many other active groups within the community that I could not name all here. Of course, there are different ways in which the congregation could live further into its mission, but that is part of the point. We all need things to strive for. With the vision statement that was approved by the CUC, there is a big difference. It is a vision statement for Canadian Unitarian Universalists. It isn't supposed to offer a how for a specific organization, such as the Canadian Unitarian Council, although they have adopted the language as their own vision statement. And it is not supposed to override the work that individual congregations have done around creating their own mission and vision statements. It was intended to bring all people into a common language, whether we are a part of a community or live in a city without a UU congregation, whether we are a regular attender on Sunday mornings and sit on boards and committees, or we come by when we can find time in our busy schedules. The vision statement offers space for all communities to identify with it, be they churches, congregations, fellowships, or startup communities, small gatherings, and individual people. I find comfort in it because as a Unitarian Universalist who lives in a different province than the congregation that I hold membership with, I still hold membership with the Calgary Unitarians. And I had to leave behind many congregations over the years, Toronto First being one of them. I know that I still belong to this community. It reminds me that I do not need to belong to a congregation or attend it regularly in order to be living into my faith. It also gives me the language and the imagery that I am called to live into, to be deeply connected, both to my church community, but also to other Unitarian Universalists, to find connection with individuals I have not yet met, or to find deeper connection to those that I do know. To be radically inclusive, to recognize that I have ingrained stereotypes, and to learn how to change my behaviors and my thoughts when someone brings these to the surface. But also to engage with those who are different from me, to make connections with people who are outside of my normal cohort, to learn the wisdom of those who are different than me. To be actively engaged, to pay attention to world politics, news, and current issues. I will stay involved in social justice work and engage with activists who hold similar values. As well, I will listen when someone has a different opinion than mine in hopes of deepening my understanding of the world and its inequities. To be theologically alive. To continue to grow in my understanding of the world and how I interact with it, to continuously examine my own sense of the holy and to contemplate how that fits with the way that I interact in the world and how I connect with life. To constantly be engaging my ideas and my ideals with those around me, attempting to discern my truth. And to be spiritually grounded. I know that the work of being connected, inclusive, engaged, and alive, quite frankly, will be exhausting. And at times it will be overwhelming. In order to feel connected to the work that I am called to do, I will continue to be grounded through my spiritual practices, living intentionally and with connection to the sacred, so that I won't forget the reason of my call to ministry and the call of Unitarian Universalism. Being, of course, there's my dog, the interconnectedness, right? Being raised Unitarian Universalist and continuing to call it my faith and striving towards understanding myself and the world through the lens that is Unitarian Universalism is not an easy task and not something that I take lightly. But having a vision statement helps guide me towards a world that I dream of, and it has made the path a little bit clearer. I'm still trying to figure out what it means to have lived through a forest fire evacuation and how my understanding of the world has changed and what that means for the future. I hope that this community and the Canadian Unitarian Council are able to see this vision statement, to live into their potential, and to understand how Unitarian Universalism can continue to recognize our interdependence and move towards love and justice. I'm not certain that this is what Gorham would have been looking for when he asked for a sermon about the future of Unitarian Universalism. But this speaks to me of a future with direction. Looking at the future of my faith, I can envision a sense of belonging that does not revolve around congregational membership or pledging or financial contributions, where belonging means that you are connected to Unitarian Universalism within your heart and within your soul, whether that means that you practice it in a church or on your own in a way that doesn't necessarily look like church. Looking to the future, I see a faith where love and justice are at the center of our interdependence. I see a faith where barriers have been removed, where we recognize the harm and the exclusion that our words and our actions can have, and we change our behavior after recognizing that harm. And not only are we actively seeking to improve our relationships with marginalized groups and individuals, but that they are at the center of our faith, leading the way forward. In this future, Unitarian Universalism will be involved in policy change at the provincial or federal levels, educational work, public action, and other ways of engaging with the issues of the world. We will call the leaders of our world to a higher standard. We will seek ways to build communities for those on the outside of society's framework. We will support growth in our faith in ways that we currently don't realize are needed. In this future Unitarian Universalism, greater depth of our own very rich theology will be more broadly understood, and we will continue to seek new truths and ways of relating to the world and each other. Also recognizing the challenges and effects of misappropriation and the misuse of other cultural beliefs. In this future Unitarian Universalism, we will have strong spiritual practices that support our work within and without our communities. We will find strength within our community practices and rituals, allowing ourselves to be filled up by the music and the words and the practices of worship, and not forget that we have the same practices while we are outside of these Zoom screens and outside of these communities. The future of our faith has never been in danger, but now, with a clearer understanding of a collective vision and language to connect our communities together in new and not so new ways, I believe our future seems a little bit clearer. May it be so, and may we make it so. Thank you for listening.